Good morning, YouTube. LA Prepper here with another vlog. In the last vlog, I was talking about Hurricane Irma and power, food, and water considerations, and I wanted to talk to safety, but it turned into an 18-minute video, so now I'm going to have a separate video, this one, where I talk about safety and how to keep yourself safe if things start going a little bit sideways. And we'll specifically talk about Hurricane Irma. Let's look at a couple different options. Going to a shelter, evacuation, and bugging in. Going to a shelter, as far as being safe from the hurricane, is obviously a very sensible move. The shelters, in any part of the country are typically designed for whatever natural disasters that area faces. An earthquake shelter will be designed for an earthquake, just as a tornado shelter will be built to withstand a tornado. Usually they go underground for that kind of thing because tornadoes are ridiculously powerful in very concentrated areas. And of course, hurricane shelter is designed to withstand a hurricane and possibly flooding, things of that nature. So, of course, if there's room in the shelter and you can get to a shelter and you're concerned about your safety at your own residence or domicile, go to the shelter. As far as safety concerns at the shelter, people are people, and regardless of the situation, there will be good people and bad people. There will be people who are honest and who want to help, and there will be people who might want to take advantage of someone or steal or things of that nature. So, am I saying, hold on to your purse tight in your shelter? Not really. But keep in mind that it's not necessarily the best idea to take every single valuable that you have, on your person and keep it in your car or keep it on your person, or might not be the best plan. You also don't necessarily want to be flaunting wealth, be wearing the nicest clothes that you have and Rolexes and Oakleys and things of that nature, and having multiple $100 bills in your wallet. It's just not. I mean, that's fine if you want to. It's a free country, but just there's this whole thing about being the gray man and kind of blending in, and I think there's not really any advantage to flaunting wealth or to flaunting that you own a lot of things or that you have a lot of valuables. I can't see how it would possibly help you. If you're getting short on food and you need to trade your watch for some food, that's different. But generally speaking, I would just be a little cautious about your personal possessions. Obviously, if you have kids, monitor your kids and make sure that they're safe. Like anything, just be a little cautious. Most people in the shelter probably just there because, they're looking for shelter, obviously. But it is possible that, there are people that have made mistakes in the past, or maybe that are of questionable moral character, and you might be sleeping right next to them. Doesn't mean they're going to do something wrong today, tomorrow, or that they even did something wrong yesterday. But just, be a little cognizant of it. If there was someone in a shelter that was really making you feel weird for whatever reason, you might consider going to a different shelter. I know that seems a little much, and beggars can't be choosers, but let's say you were a single woman and you didn't have any friends at the shelter, and there was a couple of guys that were just being really creepy and meeting you. Let's say you went to the bathroom and they were meeting you in the hall, or who knows, just making you feel really uncomfortable, and you didn't feel like there was a lot of security at the shelter for whatever reason. Might be appropriate to find another shelter. or to try to make friends in the shelter. Say, hey, is it all right if I move my cot over here? I'm feeling nervous about these two guys, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But strengthen numbers, trust your gut, and just kind of watch your back. As far as evacuating, a lot of people were told to evacuate, and with good reason. I don't even have any comments on evacuation, not evacuation, things of that nature. It's a very personal decision that really depends on each person. It's a case by case, each person. So there's no way, other than saying a hurricane is coming, it's very dangerous, you should probably get out of there. There's no way anyone outside of someone's house can say what that person should do, generally, I don't think. Unless you know for sure that the storm surge or it's not hurricane proof, you just know that it's just gonna, it's a house of straw. it's it's really not something for someone else to judge, I don't think. But safety during evacuation, man. You think people drive crazy during the commute? Imagine people running for their literal lives. I can't. Just chaos. I was looking at the traffic on Google Maps for Florida. In fact, just out of curiosity, I'll check it right now. It was awful. It was just bumper to bumper, not surprising. Not all the freeways, but a lot of the freeways. Obviously, most of the northbound. Excuse me. Yeah, I guess most of the people are out of Florida right now. Thank God, because the traffic is pretty much non-existent. Of course, the power is out for most of the state too. Or at least 6 million people, the power is out a lot of places. So I wonder how, if Google's even getting good information on all this. Excuse me. But at any rate, evacuation. People driving crazy. Um, there's just so much. There's people driving crazy. There's accidents. There's your car breaking down. The reliability of your vehicle. Just traffic. Will you even get anywhere? As well as just the whole issue of hordes of people. Every single gas station you go to, there's a line for hours. Every single motel on the evacuation route, even the convenience store, even if your kids are hungry and you ran out of snacks, waiting 6 hours because, I mean, granted, you might take some food with you, but let's say you've been on the road for 2 days and you only brought 3 days worth of food. I mean, I've never been in like an evacuation flow like that, but I'm sure all sorts of unforeseen issues arise. All these little towns that have like a traffic light or a stop sign or something. I mean, that slows down traffic immensely when you have thousands, tens of thousands of millions upon cars, going through a stop sign for Christ's sake. You know. So if you are going to evacuate, just keep in mind you're basically going to live in your car probably for a couple of days. There might not be a motel. Campgrounds are going to be full. You're not going to be the only one, sleeping on the side of the road. So you need to think about, maybe you don't want to bring mountains and mountains of crap with you so you can actually lay, if you got kids and dogs and stuff like that, you're going to want to be able to sleep in the car. And I don't know about you, but sleeping upright is not something most people do very easily unless you're really, really friggin' tired. It's uncomfortable. You will probably be uncomfortable sleeping in your car, which is going to make you more miserable and more grumpy, and you're not going to be able to take a shower. And granted, this is better than getting killed by a hurricane, but the point is, it's just going to be a really unpleasant, potentially unpleasant trip. And to top it all off, if you run out of gas, if you have problems, if God forbid, there's looters or there's violence going on the street, or the highway or whatnot, where are you going to go? There's cars behind you. There's cars in front of you. What are you going to get out of your car and just run into the woods? I guess if something really bad was happening, you would, but it's a lot of safety considerations. So, I don't know what the answer is. Get out before everyone else does, or stay in your residence. I guess are the two better solutions. Maybe have some back ways planned. For example, I noticed during the Florida traffic, a lot of people were going up the 75, which is up the middle of Florida, but not as many people were going up the 95. And sort of the same, the 98, which is more west towards more west towards the Gulf, wasn't really being utilized as well. So it's possible. I'm sure that there were Floridians who travel around a lot and Floridians that don't. And most of the ones that aren't really familiar with Florida probably just jumped on the freeway and said, I don't really know the back roads. I'll just jump on the freeway. But I guarantee you that there were a lot of Floridians that said, screw the freeway. That's busy as crap. I'm going to go take the 44 to the 98 to the 349 to the 27 to the 221 and miss a huge amount of that traffic. So if you have, and maybe you're relying on Google Maps, but you don't have cell service. So, do you have a physical map? When was the last time you actually navigated using a physical map? Do you know a couple of these side roads? Little things like leaving an hour ahead, leaving a day ahead, um, taking an alternative route, even things like whether or not you want to tow a camper or a trailer. Do you take do you take your Ford Excursion or do you take your Ford Escort? You might think, well, I'm going to put everything in the Excursion. It's going to be a lot better that way. But, maybe there's a roadblock and you can't get an Excursion through, but you can get an Escort through. I don't know. Um, Bigger isn't always better if you're on the run. Excursions use a lot of gas. If you have to idle to keep the engine running to charge your stuff, you're going to burn a lot more gas than in that Escort. You can keep that Escort running for a couple hours and, barely burn a gallon, if that. So, and also you could detour a lot more on the Escort. Let's say a bridge goes out, the road goes out. You have to take a 100-mile detour, but you only have 3 gallons of gas left because you thought a gas station was, you were going to get gas in the next town. Do you think that Excursion is going to go 100 miles on 3 gallons? No fucking chance. Maybe if you go 20 miles an hour, maybe. But I almost guarantee you that Ford Escort, if you go 20, 25 miles, 30 miles an hour, probably do 100 miles on 3 gallons. Even if it only does 80 miles or 90 miles, walking 10 miles to gas is better than walking 50 miles for gas. So, um, just things to keep in mind. Evacuation is obviously safer than the hurricane, but it has a whole bunch of unique challenges that if you've never evacuated, you might not consider. So just, look into it a little bit if you're somewhere that you might have to evacuate. Last but not least, bugging in. And the reason I actually wanted to make the video in general is because I saw an article, I saw this clickbait on Drudge Report, looting spree. And it was about like one or two incidents of looting. And I'm thinking, one or two incidents isn't exactly a spree, but, what do you expect the media to do these days? So obviously, unless you're the owner of the gun store, it doesn't necessarily concern you that people are robbing the gun store, other than the fact that they're getting guns. Now, I'm not going to talk about gun control here, but we all know that law-abiding citizens follow gun control laws because they're law-abiding, and criminals do not follow gun control laws because they're criminals. A criminal doesn't care if it's illegal to own an assault rifle or to have a 20-round mag, and on and on and on. So, what do you do about security when you're bugging in and there are looters in your neighborhood? There are people showing up pretending to be utility workers, robbing you at gunpoint. Um, that is something that is happening. Orlando had reports, or has reports, of utility workers, and I believe Houston had some of that shit too. Just really, really shameful. You know, Being a criminal scumbag is one thing, but preying on people after a natural disaster, It's like a whole new level of scumbaggery. I mean, that's just, this is cruel. This is really, really cruel. I can understand stealing because you're hungry or stealing because you're a drug addict. Obviously, I don't condone it, but I understand it. But, stealing from an old lady or whoever at gunpoint like that, special place in hell for people who take advantage of people in hurricanes and natural disasters. Absolutely. Obviously, the best way to protect yourself is with, personal defense weapon, unless you're Bruce Lee and know, karate or kung fu, or it's going to be a self defense weapon, like something non lethal, like maybe a taser or a mace, or, I don't need to go into the list of all the different types of weapons out there. But I was thinking about that utility worker thing. If my power was out and a criminal came knocking on my door and said, "I'm with SDG&E," I mean, I'd want to see some identification first. But California basically fucking sucks to defend yourself because you have to keep your firearms stored. So unless I'm always cleaning my firearm, if someone knocks on my door and points a gun on my face, unless I'm carrying my firearm on me in my house loaded, which, I don't even know the legality of that, to be honest, this stupid state. But unless I have a loaded firearm on me when I answer the door, which generally is not a good idea, if a criminal points a gun in my face, I'm, going to be letting them in the house. Presumably, unless I'm trying to get shot or unless I think I can, do something slick like disarm them, but I probably wouldn't risk it unless I was feeling really ballsy or I don't know what. But, that's how do you deal with that? Do you never answer the door? Do you put a sign on your door? I carry a firearm, and if you pose as a utility worker, I will shoot you. I guess a sign like that would probably work, but not everyone has a firearm. Not everyone is comfortable doing things like that, even if they do have a firearm. Having a firearm and using it to defend yourself against another person are two completely different things. And if you've never shot a firearm, that point might be lost on you. You might think that anyone who buys a gun is capable of killing someone or pulling the trigger because they bought a gun and they must be that type of person. But um, it's absolutely not true. I would loathe to ever use my gun in self defense in that manner because the ramifications are just so great. Even if it's legitimate, even if it's in self defense, it doesn't mean that I'm going to feel better about defending myself like that or injuring someone or killing someone like that. So some serious things to consider when bugging in when you have a huge natural disaster like that. A small little power outage is one thing, but when you have a big, giant, statewide, citywide thing, the criminals are going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to see opportunities like that. And I tell you what, in parts of Texas where they put those signs, "You shoot, we loot," I suspect they had a lower incidence of looters. In Texas, you can open carry. Not everywhere, but they're a lot more supportive of open carry. They're a lot more supportive of using personal firearms to defend yourself, defend your property, defend yourself. Defend yourself. They have more stand your ground laws, which has to do with whether or not you have to retreat if someone is coming towards you and how much force you can use to defend yourself. Like, I'm not an attorney, but the point is, Texas, some states make it a little bit easier to defend yourself. God bless Texas. So, in conclusion, if there's a large disruption to services, whether it be from a natural disaster, a malicious act by a party or government or whatever, whether or not you're going to shelter, you're going to evacuate, or you're going to bug in, You're going to have unique security concerns. There is going to be potential for harm to come to you and your family, but you can absolutely take steps to mitigate that harm by planning ahead a little bit, just being aware of your surroundings, and letting people know around you and trying to build community support to keep the area safe. The "you shoot, we loot" was not an independent thing. It was not just one person. It might have been one person with that sign, but I guarantee you there were more people in the neighborhood that had that sentiment. And there weren't any libtards saying, "Take the sign down, that's mean, that's violent, you shouldn't put up signs like that." No, I would be very surprised if anyone was speaking like that, because they knew that their neighbors were going to protect them. Their neighbors weren't some crazy gun nuts. They just wanted to make sure that criminals knew they weren't welcome in that neighborhood. And, I really respect that. So thanks for watching. Those were my thoughts on safety in a WROL. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next time.